Hello again, everyone, and welcome to Quigley on Divorce, a behind-the-scenes look. I'm your host, James Quigley, and I appreciate you listening along or following along, watching. I want to wish everyone a happy new year. We're a little bit into January, and as the new year has gotten underway, for me in my business, it's an interesting time. Many of you may have, following the news or heard online or wherever your source of information may come from these days, that there's this planned surge of divorces that may be coming following COVID. And it's been interesting because I have noticed an increase in business, and I don't know that I attribute it as much to COVID as we're into a new year, we're through the holidays, and that's a big part of sort of getting off to the new year. Many people have resolutions and they're wanting to get through the holidays, and the stress of COVID, the stress of the holidays, all those things may have caused them to delay, and now they're looking to reach out and maybe start a process. And so the topic of my conversation today is when's the right time? And I've always said to my clients and people who will come, they'll call me, they'll interview me, and they've got a lot of questions. They'll tell me about their situation. And the one thing that I will say repeatedly to individuals is it's not my job as a divorce lawyer to tell someone that they should get a divorce. I've probably said this on other episodes before. In fact, I don't think people should get divorced as a general rule. I believe in marriage. I believe that that there is always inevitably going to be tough times in a marriage, things that you're going to have to work through, things that you're going to have to fight for your marriage. And with two committed, loving individuals, I think you can get through those tough times, especially if there's a faith base involved. That can really help you through tough times. What I've seen, however, though, is situations where it doesn't appear objectively to really be a marriage. And even in those situations, I have a hard time saying to an individual, you should get a divorce. I've found many people have come to me and they'll tell me their situation, they'll tell me their story, they'll say, I'm in this type of relationship, and they'll start to describe what oftentimes is some form or another of abuse. It doesn't always come in the traditional sense of a physical violence. That's a little more objective when you think of the word abuse. I had an individual I was speaking with recently and consulting with, and it was clear that that individual's spouse probably had more than just narcissistic tendencies. It sounded like there were probably elements of an actual narcissistic personality disorder that had happened over years and years and decades of a marriage, to where the individual interviewing me, contemplating divorce, had really been so abused mentally, emotionally, and I would even submit spiritually over this extreme length of time that this individual had really become codependent on the abuser. And it was a sad conversation. It was hard, to have a logical conversation that always then ended up with the individual consulting with me saying, well, my spouse says this, though. My spouse says I won't get anything. My spouse says this is my fault. My spouse says I should have done this. And that has really crept into this individual's psyche to where it's actually a belief that what this individual has been told is true. And so on the positive side, this individual was seeking help, and that is a necessary first step, I think, for anybody who's contemplating a divorce, contemplating ending their marriage, is make sure that you have a support base around you. Make sure that you've spoken to a psychologist or a therapist, maybe even a marriage counselor, a priest or a rabbi or some religious individual that you're close with to try to help you with the marital issues, but also really with you, your inner self. And that's going to be a big part of some of the things I talk about through this year, which is self-help, self-care, really looking to put yourself in a better position emotionally, spiritually, physically, mentally. This process of divorce is difficult for every person that enters it, no matter where you're at, no matter what your circumstances are. So preparing yourself to be able to endure that process is a must. Getting professional help. There's many people that I talk to. I give recommendations to some really good people that can offer really good help. And oftentimes, all that help does is it helps these individuals who are contemplating when is the right time, where in their heart of hearts, in their minds, they know that they haven't been really married for a long time. They're in abusive relationships. They've been neglected, they've been abused, but actually getting out of that is very, very difficult. I was speaking with an individual just the other day, and my advice to her was to take a step. And that sort of dovetails into what my general goals are for myself in 2021. We've all been shut down, we've all been quarantined, we've all had all of these restrictions placed upon us that have affected each and every one of us in some measurable way. And so what I'm focusing on is all those things I've thought about, all of those things I've analyzed, all of those things I've contemplated. I need to take action. And what I said to this individual was just actually taking a step and calling me a divorce lawyer is a step. It's doing something. It's an action. It's not easy. It's not easy to pick up the phone, to send an email. And so just that alone is, I think, something that is a positive measure, taking back some of the power, taking back some of the control of your own lives. And that's, to me, what I really believe the process is for people where they've been in very difficult circumstances and they don't think they can get out financially. They don't think they can physically get out. They think they are at risk with their children, that their children will be taken away from them. So these are all things that keep people paralyzed in sometimes very, very damaging situations in relationships. I'm not suggesting or advocating anyone stay in an abusive marriage. To the contrary, that's not a marriage in my belief. And so you have to measure where you are at in your relationship. Is it that you just hit some hard times? I have 4 children. Raising 4 children is not easy on a marriage. Raising 1 child is not easy on a marriage. Stressful jobs are not easy on marriages. Financial circumstances with COVID. I've got family that's had a restaurant for 20 years that's being significantly impacted by all of these shutdowns. And my family running a restaurant, having small children, these are not easy times. That to me is different than saying we have a broken marriage. And so I really encourage people to really think about the difference of the kind of marriage you are in. Are you in a lull personally that maybe you just need some help? You need professional help to get out of the rut, to get out of the depression that this virus has caused so many people to fall into. And that coming out of that, I can renew my energy in my marriage. But in those situations where it's destructive, where it's damaging, where it's abusive, my mantra again is do something. And oftentimes doing something is more than just thinking about it, because a lot of you think about it. A lot of people talk to friends, family, and invariably everybody's saying the same thing. And I've seen that play out in my practice. People come to me, well, that's what my friend was telling me. That's what my therapist was telling me. That's what my uncle was telling me. But the ability to process what people are saying from the outside looking in, and for each individual to internalize that and be able to take that step, it's a struggle. So I encourage people, when you do take a step, when you do anything, recognize that. It's really important. You've done something. And don't try to measure it in terms of its significance. Well, so what? I picked up and called a divorce lawyer. I got some advice. Okay. Well, based upon that advice, what is your next step after that? Because when you take a second step, now you're starting to walk. And I think that's just tremendously valuable for people who have been stuck. There's all kinds of studies, there's research on how long people actually contemplate getting a divorce before they actually move forward in it. That's probably a good thing, because your first knee-jerk reaction shouldn't be, I want a divorce, when you're in a marriage and something goes bad or something, there's a struggle. But over time, if you're contemplating it and you've tried to correct yourself, you've tried to help yourself with whatever issues you may have going on in your own life. When you've tried to work with your spouse and make it better and do something that's going to make the marriage better, and that's not happening. And then you've gotten to this point where you're just stuck. Take a step. That's really my advice. And so beginning of the new year is oftentimes that first step for people. We wanted to stay intact for the holidays. We had vacations planned. We have holiday traditions. It's such a joyous time for our kids. I get it. Those are very, very real reasons not to start a divorce. Now, here we are in January. And then the next conversations I hear are, well, we've got a spring break trip scheduled with the family. So I want to get through that. And then it's, well, school's going to be out in a couple of months when we get to the summer. Well, once we get the house sold, then we'll move forward. But then someone's got a wedding this summer. So there's always some reason to sort of justify this paralysis we've put ourselves in that kind of holds us where we're at, which oftentimes is toxic. It's unhealthy. And it takes a toll on us physically, mentally, emotionally. And you layer it with COVID and all of the struggles everybody had. This can be very damaging and destructive times. So if your step, by the way, is not to call me as a divorce lawyer, that's perfectly fine, but do something positive for you. I recently joined a club, and the focus is really on wellness. There's a health club component. It's called Beermann. It's downtown, super cool place. They have all kinds of medical people on staff, and there's all kinds of programs that you can get yourself physically, mentally, and emotionally well. And that for me is a focus in my own life. And I encourage everyone to take that kind of a step. So maybe your first step is to say, let me get out and do something. Let me change my career. Let me change lawyers. Let me change spouses. Whatever that is, you have to move yourself forward. And this, I'm encouraging people in this new year to take positive steps for themselves, for their families, for their children. And I think the net result of that is you start to build an energy. Every step you take, now all of a sudden you're walking. And now I'm walking a little faster, and pretty soon I'm running. I'm running in a new life. I've got a positive energy. I got positive people around me. I got people that support me, that energize me. And then I can give that back to them as well. So I think some of the things I'm going to try to touch on through this year with my podcast episodes is a general sense of wellness and recovery. And I might even get a little spiritual in on some of this stuff and just share experiences. Because divorce is something where it is a process, but I think coming out of that process, there are opportunities and positive growth, self-empowerment, regaining self-esteem, feeling good about yourself. These are all things that I think are available to people, but it requires work like everything else. Things are going to be handed to you. You're not just going to say, well, I filed for divorce, I got a divorce, and now I'm happy, now I'm well, now I feel great. It doesn't work that way. And so in conjunction with that first step concept, I encourage people on my team here at work, my kids, write down your goals. It's not too late. We're in the middle of January. Write down your goals. What is it you want to accomplish? And what I've read, what I've learned is no matter what you have on that list, you got to start doing something. Start with the easiest thing to do. And sometimes the easiest thing to do is the simplest of tasks, but can oftentimes be one of the most significant. And I circle back to that idea that people call me just after years sometimes of contemplating getting out of this very difficult situation and calling to just get some reassurance, to get some advice. I told a client recently, information, knowledge is power. If you feel powerless, then get information. If you don't know what's going on with the financial affairs in your marriage, find out. Ask your spouse, demand your spouse share that information. Talk to your family accountant. Talk to your family financial advisor. Set up meetings. And if no one's willing to share, and that's unfortunately something that your lawyer has to get through the process of divorce, then as you get that information, you will get educated, you will get information, you will get knowledge. And that begins to rebuild that sense of power within an individual. And I think is absolutely stripped away from certain people in these relationships. So again, I'm going to repeat, I truly wish anyone who's watching this or listening to this success and love in their marriage. Marriage is a wonderful blessing. It is difficult. It requires a very, very strong commitment. But there are those circumstances where it's no longer a marriage. There is no commitment there. There's no love. There's no support. There's only destruction, damage, and harm. And if you think you're in that situation and you've gotten help, listen to the help that you're getting and take a step. Take a first step. I'm always available. I'll talk with people at an initial consultation that I won't charge for, because I want people to feel as though there's hope, that they have help available, that they have options available to them. And that's generally what I try to convey to people. Even people thinking about a divorce, they don't even know, does that mean we're going to a trial at some point? What does it mean? No, we can mediate, we can do collaborative. There's all kinds of different ways to meet your family needs in this type of a process. And we want to walk through that. We want to be strategic. If you find yourself stuck, but in the middle of a divorce, make a change. Call me and say, you know what? My lawyer doesn't have a strategy. I don't know what we're doing. I don't even have a trial date. I don't even know how to settle the case. That's a problem. That means you don't have power because you don't have information that you are entitled to. So get that information. Take back your power. Take back your lives and take a step. I hope that in some small measure, this bit of advice can be helpful to you in starting out the new year. I really, really hope for everyone positive vibes, positive energy. I'm so motivated for this new year coming out of 2020. I think all of us just need that spiritual uplifting. And so I really, really encourage everyone to just take a step and know that there's a lot of us there to help you take that first step. And once you get walking, we'll walk the walk with you. So call me anytime. You can reach me. You can check out my website at www.beermannlaw.com and check out my profile, James M. Quigley. And of course, my direct extension, if you ever want to call me, is 312-621-1225. Take care.